It's got no embargo, followed by an embargoed section, no live tweeting during the broadcast section, please, and use the microphone provided. James.
Afternoon, Ange. Just start with team news. Is there any issues going into this one?
Nothing, no change from the last game. So everyone got through it okay, and the guys who are out still, not available.
How did James Maddison come through his 20 minutes?
Yeah, he was okay. He was fine. Yeah, I mean, probably could have, got him a little bit more game time, but the way the game was going, I kind of put him on probably a little bit later than he probably would have wanted me to. But he got through it okay. He's trained well, so he's ready to go.
Is he pushing for a start tomorrow?
Well, we'll see. I mean, look, we've obviously got 3 games this week, after Friday and tonight and Saturday, so there'll definitely be some changes. It's just about sort of balancing up, who starts and who's going to be best equipped for tomorrow night.
And just on the team news front, with Pape Sarr now out of the Africa Cup of Nations, do you know when he could be returning?
The latest I heard is that he should be back tomorrow at some stage. So, disappointed for him because obviously Senegal were kind of had a real ambition to win the competition, but he did well for him again. He's a key member, and from our side, it'd be good to get him back, and should be fine for Saturday after arrival.
And 2 days left of the transfer window. I've got to ask you, do you think there'll be any more incomings, any players going out at all? We've seen a few links from younger players last couple of days as well.
Look, unlikely, I'd say. I don't see any incomings. Outgoing's a little bit different because I'm not sort of totally engaged with that. Other people are doing the work around that. I'd say unlikely on both fronts without ruling anything out.
And finally for me, I know we haven't really had a chance to hear from you about Jurgen Klopp leaving Liverpool. I just wanted to get your thoughts on that, and to follow up on that, for yourself, someone who's been managing since, was it 96, I think you started, what's been the key to your longevity, and what do you do to protect your mental well-being in such a high-pressure job?
People question my mental well-being, that's why I chuckle. Look, in terms of Jurgen, I didn't answer it the other night, which was, probably the kind of mental state I was in after the game, which, to be fair, is probably a bit poor on me. I should be able to look past that. But anyway, obviously a shock to everyone in terms of, you see what he's building again. He's rebuilt this side again, and they look like they're going to be a force. And he's just been such an integral part of, rebuilding that football club, back to the heights it was before. And it's a credit to him and I guess all his staff, but especially to him because to go into a big football club and rebuild it to the stature it used to be is not an easy task, and he's done that. It is hard these days to stay at one club for a long time. I think that's a tough one when you ask me about my longevity. I think part of that process for me has been moving on after 3 or 4 years or 2 years, and we've mostly done it after success, but I know how hard it is to rebuild after you've done that, and I found for me it was always better that I kind of move on at the time. That's how I felt, and I can see how when you stay at one club and you need to do 1 or 2, maybe a third rebuild, it can be taxing. But like I said, he's done it. He's an unbelievable manager. He's left an indelible mark, and I'm sure there's more to come. I'm interested to see how long the sabbatical lasts. I'm kind of hoping it lasts for a while because it gives me hope that when I do, because I have those thoughts in my mind often, I've got a sense it just drags us back in. But I hope he does have the break that I think he deserves.
Hi, Ange. Good afternoon.
Hey, g'day, mate.
Hiya. Brentford away back in August was your first time managing Spurs in the Premier League. Nearly 6 months gone. Is it fair to say that the team is reaching what you expected them at this stage, or probably even more based on the changes in the summer?
Look, I think the other night kind of gives us a sense of where we're at a little bit in terms of our destination. But in terms of our starting point, I think it's fair to say I really believe we have made progress, both with the squad and with our football. The results sort of slowly inching that way as well. So I think that's the key thing for me is that if we continue to make progress and continue to develop as a team, keep developing our players, and for us. Then that destination point, which, like I said the other night, showed that we're a fair way off that. At least there's a belief in us that we can bridge that gap at some point. So I definitely think there's been progress, but I also know there's a long way to go.
Brentford tomorrow at home. We saw Ivan Toney's performance against Forest recently. How impressed have you been with his performance, especially after the fact he hasn't played a competitive game for so long?
Yeah, look, I think he's a fantastic player. But you can see just how important he is to Brentford. He changes that team almost overnight. They've obviously been going through a rough trot in terms of results in recent times, and they've had their own share of injuries. But as soon as he comes into that team, he just gives them a different look, not just as a player, but in terms of his presence. And I thought you could sense that straight away. And as you said, credit to him after being out a long time. Obviously, he's not coming back from injury, so it's a little bit different. I assume that he was working pretty hard at training, and I think that shows. But he definitely makes a difference to Brentford, as he would, I think, with most sides, but particularly to them because so much of their sort of attacking threat revolves around him.
Even if there won't be any further new additions in this transfer window, what is it that encourages the most when it comes to your current team, your current squad, Spurs?
Just like I said, just the progress the players are making. I've just seen real growth in a lot of our players from, like even from that first game. They're really developing. They're getting challenged every week, and I look at them and I just see so much more growth in them. When I talk about obviously Friday night was a reminder of the gap between us and the very best. I think we can bridge some of that gap with the players we have here if they continue to develop. I can see them, in the next couple of years really, developing into really top footballers. And I think that's the most encouraging thing for me is that, I've seen growth, but I see so much more growth in the bulk of our squad.
Hi, Ange, how are you?
Good, mate.
You mentioned that gap, and you mentioned earlier you're some way off the destination at the end of the journey. How encouraged are you? You're actually on track for that. I mean, beginning of the season, would you have said after 6 months, obviously you'd still rather be in both cups, but the position you're in now is where you expected to be?
Well, I think I've said a few times. I didn't have expectations. I certainly don't have a sort of timeline for these things. It's more just, am I seeing progress? Am I seeing growth? And I believe that we have both as, like I said, the playing group, but also our football. It's constantly developing, and that doesn't change. After Friday night, but at the same time, we need to understand that nothing stands still. So it's not about trying to catch a sort of stationary target. Other teams improve. Man City will improve. So it's not just about trying to sort of hit a certain point. It's constant improvement, and if you don't accelerate that growth, it can always be too far away from you, out of reach. So we've got to make sure that we stay really disciplined in continuing to push our players and push ourselves to try and bridge that gap as quickly as possible.
I know in your career it's rare you go a season without winning a trophy, which will probably happen this year. But is top four now for you success?
So we can't win the league?
No, I didn't say that.
Well, you did.
Well, I said it possibly.
Probably, yeah. That's fine. That's okay. You're allowed to say that. That's all right. Don't worry about it. It's fine. That's all right. No, you're allowed to say it. Don't worry. You don't think we're going to win the league? That's fine. Just be strong on that. That's all right. No, look, I get you. Look, I understand that, and I get the question. And look, it's disappointing. It's disappointing that we're out of both cup competitions, particularly with not being in Europe, because obviously I kind of addressed it before the game that supporters really kind of crying out for some sort of success for them to experience at this football club. But as I said, I can't let that guide my course, and this year's still about us, like I said, growing as a team, finishing the second half of the year stronger than we did the first. If we do that, then we'll be in a good position, I think, to continue to challenge and push this team along. And that's our focus. As much as obviously there's disappointment there that, like I said, we're out of another cup, but there's also a real sort of reminder to us that if we want to, as I said before the game, it's not just about winning one trophy. If we're going to compete at that level, at the level we want to, then we've still got a lot of work to do.
And finally, just going back to Jurgen Klopp, and football managers always say that it's a drug, and they can never walk away, they can never leave it, and that's why we see people like David Moyes at 60, Roy Hodgson in his mid-70s still managing in the Premier League because they can't ever stop. Do you, in a way, admire Jurgen for thinking, right, my energy levels are low, what have you, and therefore I want to take a break, I want to walk away? And
I'll admire him if he sticks to it. If I see him pop up in 6 months' time somewhere else. No, look, I understand it, and I do, and to be honest, I know people kind of look for reasons. I don't need another reason apart from what he said, that he feels like he's running out. I totally understand that. Like I said, I know how hard he would be, and people underestimate it. Obviously, I love the role of rebuilding sides, going in and sort of building your team, but rebuilds within an actual football club are really, really challenging because, you invariably get the same questions you got the first time, and you think, well, I've already done it. Why do I have to explain myself again? But you have to explain yourself again, and it's why I don't think managers stay too long at one club these days. It's kind of rare that they will, and I can totally understand it. And it credit to him that he recognised that, because I don't think anyone would have questioned if he stayed on, for as long as he wanted to. But I think he's got standards he set, and he certainly. He certainly set the highest possible standard. If he feels like, and I think he knows that we all know that unless you're all in, you can't maintain that. So it's a credit to him. He's made that decision.
On the personal front, you always mentioned about moving your family around, not having one particular house. You're always moving, having things in boxes. That must be the most difficult bit, I thought.
Oh, it's just a different challenge. And look, that isn't always by choice. It's just that if I'd have moved 4 different clubs in the UK, we might have had a house. We mightn't be, living out of boxes. But we've moved around the world, so it's a bit different. But look, I think it's just different for every manager the way they deal with these things.
Ali?
So kind of along those same lines, then, obviously this 3-4 year kind of pattern almost that you've had in your career that you said earlier. Is that something that would put you off changing that pattern because of the constant need to rebuild within a club constantly?
I don't know. I think, again, you just address those things. Like, ultimately, it just goes with how you feel, at the time. And that's what I've always done. I've just, if I felt that, it was time for me to move because there was another challenge that I'd really like and enjoy, I've made that decision. I haven't based any decision I've made in my career around sort of security or contracts, because I've probably left secure positions for unsecure positions, because that's kind of how I am as a person, and I know that's when I kind of work my best. But whether that changes over time, I don't know. But I've never sort of preempted that stuff or put any timelines to it. If it could be 2 years, could be 3 years, could be 4 years, could be longer than that, I don't know. But I've always moved when I felt that there was another challenge there that kind of I thought would be a best fit for me.
Back on your squad, obviously 3 games in 8 days. Romero and Van de Ven haven't played a lot of football in the last few weeks. Could we see Radu Dragic maybe make his full debut across this week at some point?
I don't know. I mean, it's what we're going to try and do is win these 2 games, and I'm going to put teams out there that I think will win the games. That's always my focus. It's not about sort of trying to preempt things about whether one plays or doesn't play. We'll put out a team tomorrow night. We believe can win us a game of football, and then I'll address that after that and see what we need to do for Saturday.
And Manasonman, where's he at in his kind of stage of coming back? Has he done any kind of training? Or?
He's had a couple of goes at it, but it's fair to say he's had a couple of setbacks. He had one this week as well, so he's getting sort of further investigation on it. I think early next week.
Charlie, to finish the segment, please. Just wait for the microphone. Sorry.
I just wanted to ask you talked about in the summer how it's quite an unusual window, no sporting director. How different has it been this time around with the new structure that's in place?
Yeah, it's been a little bit different in that, I think I've been sort of less involved than I probably was in the summer, fair to say, and, it's good. And obviously this window is a little bit trickier because I have games, in the summer there's no games, so I can sort of put my energies, or if I needed to put more energy into that side of things I could, but obviously we've had games and with Johan there and his group, his group of people working alongside him, it's just meant I've had less involvement in a lot of the sort of preliminary stuff, and my role kind of stays specific now to probably what it should be around the final decision.
And now obviously that was quite unique, but this system, how does that compare with your other clubs? Is it kind of fairly similar? Are there big differences?
Yeah, look, but everyone works differently. Johan works differently to others, and I've always, like I said, I've always found it. As long as you're working with sort of good people and we're all aligned, irrespective of the setup, you can usually get good outcomes. Like I said, the one non-negotiable for me is I get final say. That's the only thing I kind of insist on, irrespective of, only because I believe that the responsibility should lie with me as to that decision, because I'm the one that's going to put the final decision into the place it needs to be. So, but aside from that, they all work differently. But I've enjoyed working with Johan. Obviously, this is his first window in his team, and I'm sure going into summer we'll all be in a real good place to make sure that, again, we try and take advantage of the fact that we can make our squad and our team stronger for what's ahead.
You mentioned there about the challenge of a rebuild is that you're kind of having to do the same things and answer the same questions. How hard is it as a manager when things that may have worked really well in one place suddenly aren't working so well and you have to adapt, but a part of you is saying, but this has worked before, you adapt to me, kind of thing?
I'm not really sure. I mean, it sort of, again, it hasn't sort of happened to me. The constants I've taken with me in terms of rebuilds are still there. I still think there are certain fundamentals that do work, and it's more about, trying to convince people within the organisation that this is the way to go. Because obviously, when you go into a new place, there may be people who have been there for quite a while, who have probably seen 4 or 5 of me come along and with new ideas, and rightly so, they may be a bit sceptical or reluctant to sort of. So it's about trying to get everyone on board with your ideas, as much as whether it works or not. I mean, I have no doubt it works. It's just I know it'll only work if everyone's aligned to it.
Okay, we'll end the broadcast section there. We'll move on to the embargoed section, starting for 10:30 p.m. tonight. Tom.
Have you ever not had final say on transfer?
No. And look, I don't want to make it sound like this is what I want and I get. No, it's just that, sometimes it may come down to, the club saying, look, we really like this guy, and, if I feel like it's going to fit, then I'll certainly make a decision. But if I don't, if I feel strongly about it, then I will sort of draw a line there, because ultimately, like I said, it's a waste of a club's resources if me, the person who's going to be kind of at the forefront of everything that happens after that decision, doesn't believe in the decision we've made. But more importantly, I take ownership of it, and if I'm going to take ownership of something, like I said, I may as well have had the final say, because I'm not going to take ownership on something and in my mind I think, well, it actually wasn't my decision, and that's more on me than anyone else.
Chris, I see about 2 players in your squad. Pierre Emerick, his lawyer came out yesterday saying he wants to stay. First of all, how happy are you with him that he's staying? And then also Brian Hill, he's someone who's been here a while, been out on loan. There have been questions from the outside whether he's up to it physically in the Premier League. hasn't played regularly for you, but he's still here. Do you think he has a long-term future at all?
Look, I think with all the players, I kind of look at it the same way. Is, you know, as much as I'm sort of the steering this ship, they also have their own. You know, and I speak to players about this all the time. It's their careers, and they've got to do what they feel is right for them as well. And look, from my perspective, I need a strong squad. You know, and all right, maybe this year without being in Europe and obviously being out of the cups, the games now are limited between now and the end of the year. But if we want to get to where we want to, then again I compare us to, you know, the other clubs that we want to try and challenge, and they've got big squads. They've got some pretty good players not starting. I look at it every week when they make substitutions. You know, so that's what we've got to get to. So, you know, whether that's Brian or Pierre, who maybe probably feel they should be playing more, if they made a decision that, you know what, I need to go somewhere else to play, it's not like I'm just going to leave that ball. I'm going to replace them with somebody, again, who I think is going to be a good enough player to play in the Premier League, but maybe won't start because you need that, you know. And but, you know, Pierre's played the last 2 games, you know, and I think he's probably played just about every game this year, I think, at some point. He hasn't started a lot, obviously. And Brian sort of, you know, he's had a couple of injury problems earlier in the year, and he's probably hasn't played as much as he'd want to, which again, I understand. But ultimately, I've got to try and build a squad here that's going to challenge. And that's only going to happen if I've got, you know, 20, 22, 23 players who are all of Premier League standard. And that will mean that if it's not Brian, it's Pierre, it's 2 other players who will come in and maybe aren't playing as much. And then, you know, but that doesn't mean I don't rate them or I don't think they're up to the standard. It's just that you need a squad in this, and we've seen it more than anyone with the injuries we've had.
Just finally, back to Jurgen. Man City and Liverpool, such a stronghold over the Premier League. Recent memory of Pep and Jurgen being critical to that. We saw before what happened when United got a legendary manager there. Does this potentially open the door for more competition?
Yeah, well, look, I think with those kind of things, it just depends. It depends on everyone else, because the one thing you know, managers and people like Pep and Jurgen, they're not going to stand still. So, like I said, it's not like it's a stationary target you're trying to hit. They're going to keep pushing the envelope to be better and improve, and it's up to everyone else to kind of match that and get up to that and try and exceed it and not shy away from the challenge. And, you know, I think, yeah, they've been very, very dominant teams for quite a while now. But, you know, there's only one way to break that cycle, and that is for others to rise to that challenge. I just don't see them coming back to the field. I just, you know, even with Jurgen going, I still think there's a really strong squad there, really strong mentality. I'd be very surprised if whoever takes over, you know, doesn't continue to build on that. I always think with those kind of things, it's up to the challengers to change the status quo. You know, and that can only happen if you have that sort of desire and will to challenge that and not feel or be afraid of falling short, because ultimately if you don't, then they're just going to keep winning.
Matt?
If that is you done in the transfer window, are you happy with what you've been able to do?
Yeah, look, we obviously had a couple of clear objectives for sure, and part of that was to try and do it early, because, you know, even now I can see already that, you know, Timo's played a couple of games, Radu's really settled in really well, so, you know, you can imagine if we were signing him sort of now in the last couple of days, probably need a week or 2 to get him up to speed. So, you know, I think every window you kind of measure it on, well, are we coming out of it stronger than what we went into it? And I think we have. You know, we definitely, you know, benefit from Radu and Timo, both in the short term, but even I think longer term and more importantly, and I think that's the measure of any sort of window, and we haven't lost anyone significant. So from that perspective, we've, you know, got a couple of good loans out of it. Ashley Phillips, Alfie Devine going to Plymouth, both those boys. So I think it's been a productive window for us.
And about
Yeah.
inertia for various reasons.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a sign of things to come, and do you expect it?
Yeah, hard to say. I don't know whether this is the new world, and obviously there's some financial sort of parameters now that are kind of dictating how these windows work. We might have to replace you guys with, the finance section of your organisation, so we can explain to people why the transfer window is so quiet. But it may or may not. I don't know. Maybe just the people are sort of, looking for the summer window to make significant rather than sort of something short term. But it may be, and I just think the way clubs are kind of working is changing. I just see it. There are some more strategic decisions. I think you're seeing less, not panic buys, but kind of desperation just to bring anybody in or just to buy someone. I think clubs are just being a little bit more strategic now in these kind of moves, and I also think that there's very little secrets out there. Like I reckon if you went through all the Premier League clubs and could somehow snatch their list of 18 to 21 targets, I don't reckon there'd be a lot of difference between all of them, because there aren't many out there now. So that's changed things a little bit as well. So I think everyone's just a little bit more cagey and strategic. Will that last? Maybe, I don't know. That's certainly the indication I get at the moment.
It does last. You feel like Tottenham are well set. Figures last week about being the richest, wealthiest club in London now in stadiums.
Yeah.
Forum.
Yeah, no, it certainly, look, it helps, and I think it's a credit to the club that we've got ourselves in that position, but that's not what clubs are measured by. They're measured by other things.
George?
And I guess your last thing's going to be Europe next season. How close or far away are you to having a squad that can compete at the forefront for next season?
Yeah, hard to say. Like I said, I think there's real growth still in this group. I really do, and it depends on sort of, and that's why this second half of the year is going to be really important for us to see how much we can push these guys to finish the season strong. And if we get a really strong finish, then there's a lot of guys who, don't forget, are probably in their first or second year of Premier League football, where you go, okay, well, there's some real growth there, which I think will help us in building the squad we want. But I still think there's a way to go. I still think there's, when I kind of look at where we're at, to where I think we need to be in the next sort of year or two, there's still a way to go, and that's why I think every window is going to be important for us. If we can sort of, improve the quality of the squad, and also, like I said, develop our players, and we'll get to that point quicker, but there's still a long way to go.
And clearly this is a project and it's not happening overnight, but I guess this year the news and Pep's contract things expiring in 2025, he doesn't sign a new deal, but is there kind of a real feeling, I guess, amongst the sort of top six that you need to be ready to pounce, because even if they do bring in a quality manager, there can still be transitional kind of periods?
No, again, that's what the kind of, I guess that's the point I was making before, is if that's your only hope, waiting for the top ones to slip, I don't think you get there, I'd rather them be at their best and we match them, we get up to that level and exceed it, than hope that they slip up. I just don't think that's a strategy. I think that's more of a wish. Like I said, we got a real good indicator the other night that, there's still, and look, to be fair to the lads, we hung in there and we fought hard, but, we're playing against I think probably the best side in the world at the moment, and there was a difference between us for sure. But if we're hoping that they come back to us rather than us trying to get to there, I think you're chasing a lost cause.
And just finally, you mentioned the 6 results, obviously been a perfect week. Has it been a better week compared to that first Brentford game when we said loads of Harry Kane stuff? I'm guessing it's probably one of the most difficult weeks in football leading up to it.
Yeah, it was. Fair to say it was a challenging week because there were so many unknowns and uncertainties there. You want to start the season on a positive note, and when you lose arguably the club's greatest player on the eve of it, and you're not sure about the impact, who's going to step up, who's, how the players are going to react. We're playing differently. We're putting a different lineup. I think, Vicario, Destiny, others were making their debuts on the day. It was, Brentford away is a tough game anyway. So there was a lot of uncertainty, but that was the exciting bit as well, just to see sort of, how it developed. And I think even the start of the game, there was no running water or something. We delayed it for 20 minutes. It's bizarre. The whole thing was just like, I've just destroyed the whole Premier League just being here. So, yeah, it was. But like I said, that's the exciting bit. Different now. Yeah, it's a challenge now, but there are more knowns for me anyway. So, but the sort of the fire hasn't diminished. I still really believe that we're building something here that. Hopefully will get us to where we want to very quickly.
We'll finish with Dan for 12 o'clock tomorrow, please.
Similar line of questioning, but when Klopp came to Liverpool in 2015, it really did feel like they had a lot of building blocks in place to really kick on. It didn't happen, and Liverpool did kick on. I think the stadium build is probably accepted as the sort of biggest reason for that. But now when you look at the clubs, do you feel that you do have every necessary building block in place, financially and structurally behind you to really kick on in the way you want?
Oh, look, I think there's a good foundation there, but do I think we're where we want to be off the field as well? No, from a football perspective anyway. I'm talking. I just think, well, it's the nature of rebuilds in my experience. They don't happen in 6 months in terms of, the way you work, the staffing, the environment. We've made inroads, but it's not. I definitely don't think it's ingrained or established in here yet, and it can't be after 6 months. I'd be a fool if I thought it was. You talk about Liverpool or Man City or Arsenal. It didn't happen for them in the first 6 months. So there's no kind of waving of a wand here. So I know that is not where it needs to be yet, but we do have some things that are definitely in terms of facilities, resources. Absolutely, we're well placed. But again, all those things, you're well placed, but you've got to take advantage of it. You've got to use it well, because again, it's not the measure. The measure is not how well placed you are, it's how you execute. And I still think with all those things, we're still in the building phase. We're not in the phase of saying that, we're ready now to sort of catapult ourselves to where we want to be.
Is that kind of just behaviours that need to be ingrained, or is that more appointments behind the scenes?
Both. Yeah, behaviours, appointments. It comes down to people. They sort of cover both things, but yeah, we need to, like I said, when you look at it, I've been here 6 months. I think Scott Munn's been here 6 months. Johan's been 2 months. So when you're looking at the football side of things, all of us are kind of just getting started. It's key, obviously, that us three are aligned in what we want to do from a football perspective, but I'm sure in their areas they're kind of looking at the same things and saying, well, we need to. So until that's done, and that can only happen over the course of time, like I said, that's when you'll feel a bit more secure about then saying, okay, we can go to the next level.
And our understanding is that Fabio Paratici is still working for the club in a kind of consultancy role. And how involved are you with him day to day? Do you talk to him? Does he have an input in kind of who you're going after?
No, I mean, again, I don't have a lot of dialogue with too many people. It's the way I structure my working life, in that, I kind of keep these things to a minimum. Fabio, obviously, I know Fabio, and, every now and then we'll exchange messages or calls, and he's a smart guy. You can see that he's got a great eye for talent, but within the workings of the club and what I do, I don't have that kind of engagement, not just with Fabio, but with most people. It's more around, what's the priority right now this week, and my focus is on the football and the football department.
Okay, thanks guys.
Thanks, guys.